Imagine a penny in your pocket worth not 1 cent, but thousands. The 1988 cent hides a secret hub design never meant to exist until the following year. The 1999 cent reveals a dramatic clash that shocked even seasoned collectors. And the 2012 cent? A modern coin carrying a striking flaw that slipped past the mint's precision. 3 ordinary years, 3 extraordinary mistakes. Coins you might still stumble upon in your change today. The year was 1988, and the Lincoln cent had already become one of the most recognized coins in the United States. It had carried Abraham Lincoln's portrait on the obverse since 1909, a design by Victor David Brenner to commemorate the centennial of Lincoln's birth. On the reverse, the Lincoln Memorial, introduced in 1959, stood tall as the nation's chosen emblem of unity and heritage. By the late 1980s, billions of these copper-plated zinc cents were struck each year, flowing steadily out of the Philadelphia and Denver mints. They were meant to be identical, uniform, almost invisible in their abundance. But within this river of ordinary cents, one subtle irregularity slipped through, unnoticed at first, then later whispered about in numismatic circles as something far rarer than its face value suggested. The trouble lay in the dies. The mint had been experimenting, phasing out old master hubs and introducing updated obverse designs. This was a routine process, one that ensured crisp strikes and consistent detail. Yet in 1988, an unintentional mix-up occurred. Somehow, a die created with the obverse details of a later hub found its way into production early. For reasons no one fully understood at the time, a number of Lincoln cents bore an obverse style not meant to appear until 1989. The coins looked normal at a glance. But to the keen observer, there was something different about the AM in America. The spacing of the letters, and most tellingly, the style of the designer's initials FG near the memorial. For years, these cents circulated without fanfare. Pocket change absorbed them. Children tossed them into piggy banks. Shopkeepers gave them back as spare change without noticing a thing. And then came Richard Harmon, a collector from Ohio who had long since made it a habit to sift through rolls of pennies from his local bank. He wasn't after anything spectacular, just filling holes in his albums, hoping for the occasional wheat cent. On a chilly November evening, he emptied another paper roll across his desk, lined them up, and began his patient inspection. The 1988 cent stopped him. At first, it was simply the shine that drew his eye, the way the light fell differently on the coin compared to the others. He reached for his loupe. Under magnification, something peculiar emerged. The initials FG appeared sharper, thinner, almost foreign compared to the 1988 style he knew so well. It resembled a later rendering. Doubt crept in. Was this a counterfeit, a poor strike, or a polishing anomaly? His heart pounded as he pulled out a 1989 cent for comparison. Side by side, the resemblance was uncanny. His 1988 cent carried the very same obverse hub used for the 1989 series. He posted his discovery in a small numismatic bulletin. For weeks, silence followed, until another collector from Colorado reported the same variety. Then a third from Texas. By the spring of 1989, the whispers grew louder. A transitional error had been confirmed. The 1988 cent struck with the 1989 obverse, HUB.AT first. Dealers were skeptical. The difference was subtle, easily overlooked, and demanded close inspection. But as more examples surfaced, authenticity was undeniable. The so-called 1988 transitional cent became an instant curiosity. While most coins from that year remained common, these few stood apart, separated not by metal content or dramatic doubling, but by a quiet, nearly invisible misstep in the mint's process. The value began modestly. Early sales fetched $10, then $25, then $50. Collectors intrigued by the anomaly sought them eagerly, though many doubted they would hold long-term significance. But time has a way of transforming doubt into desire. By the mid-1990s, with third-party grading services confirming the variety and cataloging it officially, prices began to climb. What had once been dismissed as a trivial detail was now recognized as one of the most important transitional errors of the Lincoln cent series. Richard watched with astonishment. The coin he had plucked from a bank roll, the one he nearly dismissed as an oddity, was now worth hundreds. By 2005, high-grade examples began breaking into the four-figure range at auction. Collectors who once overlooked the difference now scrambled to find one, pulling 1988 cents from jars, boxes, and drawers across the country, their eyes searching desperately for the subtle FG shift that defined the era. And yet, the story did not end there. For in the quiet hum of coin circles, another twist emerged. In addition to the Philadelphia strikes, whispers suggested that Denver had also produced its own batch of transitional errors. Sure enough, the 1988 D transitional cent surfaced, carrying the same mistaken obverse hub. The discovery doubled the intrigue. Not only had the Philadelphia Mint misapplied dies, but Denver, too, had mirrored the mistake. What was once thought to be a localized anomaly now revealed itself as a systemic oversight. The rarity, however, remained. Only a minuscule fraction of the billions minted carried this peculiarity. The Denver examples, in particular, were scarcer still, sending collectors into a frenzy whenever one appeared on the market. Physical characteristics set them apart, subtle yet undeniable. The key lay in Frank Gasparo's initials. On the normal 1988 cent, the FG appeared rounded and bold. On the transitional, the letters were thinner, angled differently, matching precisely the style used in 1989. It was a designer's fingerprint, a quiet marker of transition. To the untrained eye, invisible. To the numismatist, a beacon. Auctions grew heated. A specimen graded MS-65 red fetched over $3,000 in 2008. By 2012, pristine examples touched $7,000. Prices fluctuated, rising with waves of interest, cooling as markets adjusted, only to surge again when a new generation of collectors discovered the error. Every appearance reignited curiosity. How many were out there? Were thousands waiting in circulation, or had most already been lost to time? Then came the most startling revelation of all. In 2019, a coin dealer in California examined an uncirculated roll of 1988 D cents. Among them, he discovered not just a transitional obverse error, but a specimen showing evidence of a doubled die. The doubling was faint, visible in the date and parts of "In God We Trust." It was a marriage of anomalies, a transitional hub combined with a doubled strike. Experts debated furiously, was it genuine? Could two such rare errors coexist in a single coin? After rigorous examination, authentication confirmed its legitimacy. The coin went to auction quietly, with little publicity, and sold to a private collector for a staggering sum whispered to be near $20,000. Its existence suggested that the Mint's oversight in 1988 had been more chaotic than anyone realized, with multiple dies, multiple hubs, and layers of mishandling converging in ways still not fully understood. Collectors today hold the 1988 transitional cents in reverence. They are not flashy errors like off-center strikes or broad strikes. They do not scream their rarity. Instead, they whisper it, hidden in the delicate initials of an engraver, overlooked by millions, discovered only by those with patience and persistence. They embody the essence of the hunt, the thrill of noticing what others miss. For Richard, the retired collector from Ohio, the journey remained personal. He still owns that first 1988 transitional cent, though offers have poured in over the decades. For him, it is not about the money but about the story. A coin minted in anonymity, slipped into circulation without fanfare, and rescued by an attentive eye. It is a reminder that even in the most ordinary objects, history hides secrets. Secrets that can transform a humble cent into a legendary artifact. And somewhere, in drawers and jars, in cash registers and forgotten rolls, the possibility lingers. More of these cents may wait, their faint initials guarding the truth of a moment in the Mint's history when transition left behind a trail of treasures. A trail only the most observant collectors will ever find. In 1999, the U.S. Mint found itself at a crossroads. The country was approaching a new millennium, and the coinage of the United States was being scrutinized with a blend of tradition and change. The Lincoln cent, which had been in circulation since 1909, remained the smallest denomination and one of the most familiar coins in American pockets. By this year, however, The cent was no longer made of pure copper but of copper-plated zinc, a shift that had occurred in 1982. What looked the same outwardly now had a very different core within. The Philadelphia and Denver mints struck billions of these cents in 1999, their shiny copper surfaces concealing the cheaper metal underneath. For most, they were nothing more than pocket change, destined for candy machines, bus fare, and forgotten jars at home. But hidden among the countless pieces lay a handful of coins whose very existence defied the perfection the mint strived to maintain. The error at first wasn't obvious. A penny is small, and to the casual observer, the differences seemed invisible. But as always happens in numismatics, a few sharp-eyed collectors noticed something strange. The year 1999 was already famous for certain transitional oddities, but what emerged with the Lincoln cent was more than a small strike flaw. Some cents appeared with doubled inscriptions, most strikingly on Liberty and In God We Trust. To anyone who studied them closely, the letters seemed to quiver, split apart by a second impression, like a shadow cast slightly askew. This was no random smudge. This was a double die. The first known example surfaced quietly in a small town in Illinois. A young hobbyist named Darren Michaels had developed a habit of sorting through pocket change at the kitchen table every evening after dinner. His grandfather had once told him that treasure doesn't always shine. It often hides in plain sight. In early 2000, he turned over a 1999 cent and froze. The date looked normal, but Liberty carried an unmistakable echo. Each letter was bold, almost as if struck twice. He thought his eyes were tired, so he fetched a magnifier. Under closer inspection, the doubling was crisp, with separation lines clearly visible. Darren's pulse quickened. He had read of double dies before, but to find one himself was something else entirely. At first, he wasn't sure whether this was a true double die or just machine doubling, a far more common and far less valuable mishap. He reached out to the local coin club, where his find stirred excitement but also skepticism. Machine doubling could create the illusion of doubling, but experts noted that Darren's coin had characteristics of a genuine double die. When he finally submitted it for professional grading, the verdict confirmed it: a 1999 Lincoln cent double die obverse. The find was real. Darren's hands trembled when he held the coin, encapsulated now in a plastic slab with the grading authority's seal. What had cost him 1 cent now carried the weight of something far more valuable. As word spread, other collectors began combing through their change with renewed intensity. A trickle of discoveries followed, some from bank rolls, others from coin jars untouched for years. The thrill of the chase consumed hobbyists who once overlooked the humble penny. Dealers began fielding questions about the 1999 double die. Prices that started modestly at $25 quickly rose to $75, then $150 as demand surged. By 2005, pristine examples in mint state condition began commanding hundreds. Auction houses documented sales climbing toward the 4-digit mark, and whispers circulated of private deals reaching even higher. Yet the value wasn't just in the price tag. It was in the allure. The doubled letters were not garish or obvious to the casual glance. They demanded patience, scrutiny, and knowledge. This exclusivity created a cult following. For collectors, owning one was not simply about wealth but about proof of their vigilance, proof that they could see what others could not. Over time, the narrative around the 1999 cent deepened. Numismatists debated how the doubling occurred. Theories centered on a misalignment during the hubbing process, where the working die received more than one impression from the master hub but at slightly different angles. The precision of the doubling suggested more than random error. It revealed a lapse in oversight, a subtle mistake that slipped through the mint's quality controls. To the mint, it was an embarrassment. To collectors, it was a prize. But the story did not end with the double die. Another twist emerged. In 2010, a small group of collectors reported a far rarer phenomenon. A 1999 Lincoln cent struck on a planchet meant for a dime. These coins appeared thinner, with a silvery hue, and though the cent's design was visible, parts of it extended beyond the planchet's edge. The clash of metals and designs created an otherworldly appearance. Only a handful were ever confirmed. While the double die captivated mainstream collectors, These off-metal errors drew the attention of elite numismatists who saw in them a level of rarity bordering on the legendary. The market for the dime planchet 1999 cent exploded almost instantly. Unlike the double die, these errors were nearly impossible to fake convincingly, and their scarcity guaranteed astronomical value. One sold at auction for over $10,000, a staggering figure for a coin that was technically worth only a penny. This revelation sent shockwaves through the collecting world. Suddenly, 1999, once thought of as a transitional year with little significance, had produced not one but two extraordinary varieties, each unique, each drawing its own community of seekers. The values of these coins continued to fluctuate with the tides of collecting trends. The double die cent, while not as rare, gained steady momentum as more collectors entered the hobby through online forums and social media groups. Its price in high grades stabilized in the thousands, with the finest known examples drawing fierce bidding wars. Meanwhile, the off-metal strikes became nearly mythical. Each sighting or confirmed sale made headlines in coin circles, fueling speculation about how many could possibly exist. For Darren, the young hobbyist who had found the first double die, the journey had been transformative. He kept his coin, refusing to sell despite multiple lucrative offers. For him, its value lay not in money but in the story. The night at the kitchen table, the disbelief, the thrill of discovery. Every time he looked at that coin, he remembered his grandfather's words, and he knew that what he held was more than metal. It was proof that miracles could emerge from the ordinary. And still, the mystery lingers. How many double die cents from 1999 remain hidden in circulation, resting in jars, or slipping unnoticed through cash registers? How many off-metal strikes lie undiscovered, blending into pocket change until a careful eye finally reveals them? The year 1999 may have been the final one of the 20th century, but in the world of numismatics, it became the beginning of a legend. Every collector knows that within those copper-coated zinc discs lies the possibility of encountering history, error, and fortune, all at once. The Lincoln cent has endured for over a century, its design shifting slightly yet always tethered to the memory of a president. In 1999, it carried not just that memory but also a hidden story of oversight and chance. A doubled inscription here, an off-metal strike there, and suddenly what seemed unremarkable became unforgettable. Even now, collectors continue to hunt, eyes sharp, fingers brushing over the ridges of dates and letters, hoping to catch that faint doubling, that elusive anomaly. And each time a 1999 cent is turned over in someone's hand, there remains the quiet possibility that history might once again reveal itself in copper and zinc, in error and perfection entwined. In 2012, the familiar copper-plated zinc cent continued its steady role in American coinage, carrying the Union Shield reverse introduced only 2 years earlier. For many, it was just another year in the endless production of billions of cents. A small coin whose purchasing power had nearly evaporated, but whose presence in everyday transactions remained undeniable. At the Philadelphia and Denver mints, presses thundered day and night, striking out the little coins in quantities so large they almost defied imagination. In this sea of uniformity, it seemed unthinkable that anything unusual could escape unnoticed. Yet buried in those countless billions, something did happen. Something subtle, something that would transform an ordinary cent into an object of obsession. /N/Nit began innocently enough in a small town in Indiana, where a young collector named Brian spent his evenings searching through bank-wrapped rolls. He wasn't chasing wealth, just the thrill of finding double dies, off-centers, or the occasional wheat cent. In the spring of 2013, with a desk lamp glowing against a pile of opened wrappers, he spotted one 2012 cent that didn't behave like the others under his magnifier. At first, he thought it was his tired eyes playing tricks. The word liberty seemed thicker, slightly shadowed. He tilted the coin, adjusted the focus, and then his heart skipped. The letters weren't just thick. They were doubled. /N/N. Brian examined further, and his excitement grew. On Lincoln's profile, the earlobe looked duplicated, as if a ghost image clung just beneath the surface. The date 2012 showed faint yet undeniable splitting, most pronounced at the 2. His fingers trembled as he set the coin aside. This wasn't machine doubling. He had studied enough to know the difference. What lay in his hand was a genuine double die obverse, the result of a hubbing misalignment at the mint, a mistake that should never have made it past inspection. /N/N word spread slowly at first. Brian posted photographs online, and responses were skeptical. Some dismissed it as minor, common doubling. But as more collectors inspected 2012 cents, reports trickled in of similar anomalies. Doubling in the motto "I in God we trust," splits in the shield lines on the reverse, even misaligned strikes where the design crept toward the rim. Not all matched Brian's discovery, but together they formed a strange pattern. 2012, the year of the Union Shield, had quietly become a breeding ground for errors. /N/Nat coin shows, whispers grew louder. Dealers began labeling 2012 double dies in their cases, first at modest premiums, $2, $5, then higher as demand increased. Collectors who once overlooked modern cents now hunched over magnifiers, eager to pluck these hidden treasures from change. Brian, though overwhelmed, held on to his first discovery, unwilling to part with it. He felt a connection to the error, as though fate had chosen him to be its keeper. /N/and the market shifted dramatically within just a few years. By 2016, the most dramatic double die varieties of 2012 cents commanded $100 or more in high grades, especially those certified by major grading services. Specimens pulled directly from fresh rolls, gleaming red, sold for multiples of that. Then a turning point came. An MS-67 red 2012 double die obverse, showing bold doubling on Liberty and the date, crossed the auction block at nearly $1,800. The crowd gasped. A coin that cost a single cent only 4 years earlier had become worth more than an ounce of gold. /N/and yet, the suspense didn't end with price. Collectors debated the scope of the error. How many dies had been involved? How many coins might exist in circulation, waiting in jars and tills across America? No official count emerged, and the uncertainty fed the frenzy. Some speculated that the mint's transition to single-squeeze hubbing during that era increased the likelihood of misalignments, producing these striking anomalies. If true, 2012 might stand as a landmark year in modern era history. /N/N Brian continued his journey, chasing new varieties, but his first discovery remained his most prized. He often reflected on the emotions he felt that night, doubt giving way to realization, then the quiet thrill of uncovering a secret hidden in plain sight. He never forgot the weight of that small coin in his hand, the way its doubled features seemed to whisper of the chaos behind the mint's perfect machinery. /N/and as time passed, other varieties surfaced. Off-center strikes with Lincoln's profile drifting toward the edge, shield reverses missing sections of detail due to die fill, even rare transitional-like pieces struck on planchets meant for dimes or foreign coins. Each discovery added another layer to the story of 2012, transforming an unremarkable year into a rich field of study. Value fluctuated with each revelation. Some coins peaked quickly then faded as supply emerged, while others held steady, their rarity confirmed by the absence of new finds. Collectors never quite knew what awaited them in a fresh roll. /N/and then came an unexpected twist that reignited the hunt. In 2019, a West Coast collector named Marissa submitted a peculiar 2012 cent for certification. At first glance, it was a typical double die obverse. But under magnification, the graders saw something different. Behind the shield on the reverse, faint lines curved where no design should exist. Further analysis revealed an astonishing truth. The coin had been struck from a reverse die that still carried remnants of a previous design hub, the tail end of the Lincoln Memorial Series. Somehow, during the transition to the Union Shield reverse, a working die had retained vestiges of the old memorial hubbing and later been used briefly before correction. The result was a mule-like clash of two eras on one tiny coin. /N/N news of the discovery rocked the community. If authentic, this meant that the 2012 cent not only hosted double dies and common errors, but also contained a transitional phantom of the design it replaced. The coin passed every test of authenticity, its features too precise to be accidental damage. Marissa's piece became the talk of numismatic circles, hailed as a bridge between Lincoln's Memorial and Shield cents. Its value? Difficult to determine. Estimates ranged from $10,000 to $25,000, depending on market demand. It sold privately to an anonymous buyer for an undisclosed sum, but rumors whispered that the price exceeded even the highest estimates. /N collectors revisited their 2012 cents with renewed vigor. Was Marissa's coin unique? Or could others exist? Dealers reported surges in sales of unsearched rolls, and banks saw unusual demand for change orders. The possibility of a hidden rarity lurking in ordinary pocket change electrified even casual hobbyists. /N through all of this, Brian still held onto his original double die. Its value had risen steadily, but to him, no auction figure could equal the story behind it. He had been the first to recognize the significance of 2012, the first to sound the alarm. To this day, he keeps the coin in a small protective case, not in a vault or safe deposit box, but in a drawer near his desk, where he can reach for it and remember the moment the ordinary turned extraordinary. /N and the story of the 2012 cent is still unfolding. New varieties continue to surface, each one a reminder that even the smallest denomination, struck by the billions, can harbor mysteries. Somewhere in the machinery of the mint, a momentary lapse, a die misalignment, or a hubbing oversight conspired to create treasures disguised as everyday change. And somewhere, perhaps in a coffee shop till or a forgotten piggy bank, another cent lies waiting. Its features doubled, its design ghosted, its value far beyond the humble face it presents.